So we have Susan Grayson joining us, and she's going to share some thoughts about stumbling along with grace and gratitude, I think is the way you've described it, Susan. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I'm really glad to be part of this effort, and welcome to you, whoever's watching this video. You know, when I think about my path in life, I think about the ways in which I have sort of been open to whatever opportunity was in front of me, and I didn't have sort of a clear notion or a clear path in mind, even when I graduated from high school and went to college. Most people, I think, around me assumed I would go into music or art. I had always done a lot of music and art in my life. I'm in my home art studio right now. But I felt and I did get admitted to, to a music conservatory for piano, and I changed my mind at the last minute. And at the time, I didn't know why I changed my mind, but I think I know now. I think for me, it had to do with freedom. Um, I I decided that I just did not want to have my love and passion for art and music. I didn't want to have that involved with a career and with having to perform and having to earn money in that way. And I think I couldn't articulate that at the time. But instead, I went to a good liberal arts school. I ended up majoring in political science, of all things.
No kidding.
Only because yeah, political science. Only because I took one class in political science and really loved it and loved the professor and was really good at
Did you do music and art while you were in college?
it. I did it sort of on the side in extracurricular ways. I was in a few plays, and I played music for people's weddings and stuff like that. And I've always been involved in visual arts, so I was always involved in arts and crafts. And but yeah, I majored in political science. And at the outset of my young adulthood, I had a lot. I had a lot of emotional wounds that I had to take care of. Also had an addictive and self-destructive personality. So once I graduated from college, certain things in my life kind of bottomed out, and it became clear to me that I needed to get some very serious help with all of that. And thankfully, I had a good friend who was able to plug me into the recovery community, and I began to get some good help with some scars from my childhood and some
It's
just
a tough time to have
self-destructive.
to come to grips with that too, isn't it? When you're in your
Yes.
20s and also having to figure out a life path and working all that out at the same time.
Right, right. And I know now, I've read some articles that talk about the human mind and how it is not fully formed until we're about 25 years old. And I thought, oh, that's right on target for me, because it was right around that time that I began to have the wherewithal and to realize that I was stuck in this sort of self-destructive compulsive loop. So I luckily, straight out of college, well, not straight out of college, but pretty soon after college, got a job as a writer at the National Endowment for the Humanities. And I loved that job. I started, it was a very entry-level position, just writing for their newsletter. And of course, it had nothing to do with my political science degree. But you know what? I never had anything in particular in mind for what I was going to do with that degree anyway. I mean, you might think that a person who was pursuing that degree would maybe go to law school or go into journalism or teaching. And I never had any sort of set prescription for what I might do with that degree. So I stayed at the NEH for about 14 years and sort of worked my way up through the ranks, eventually became a writer and editor for their magazine, which I loved. And it was a great job. It was a very stable job. And it was a great job for me to figure out my sort of emotional and spiritual scars, and for me to have that job to go to every day and also be able to do a lot of work on myself through recovery programs and therapy. So it was a very healing time in my life.
And NEH also allowed you to feed some of the arts and
Yeah,
music part of of Susan Grayson, if you will.
definitely that. And you know, and I was a writer there, so I definitely got to use the artistic side of things. And then when I was hired on to their magazine staff, I of course got to do some artistic things with photographs and design, that sort of thing. So, you know, I look back on it now, and I think, you know, that God and the Holy Spirit was involved in it all along. And I was not particularly religious. I had been brought up in a church setting, but I had really distanced myself from God throughout most of my college and young adult years. But even so, I can see that there was a hand of faith and providence that was sort of holding and supporting me and moving me along. And that's good, because I did not have family support at all during this period of time.
Well,
So,
I can't bring this to a close without you sharing with us how you got from that to seminary. You got to get
yeah.
that part in.
Well, it all started with getting married and having a baby. You know, I met my husband in my 30s, and we got married, and I knew that I wanted children. And by that time, you know, I had done a lot of healing from those scars that I've spoken about. And so I had become a much more whole person. And I just knew that I wanted to have a child. So I had my first child at age 36, you know, a little bit late in the game. And I loved my job at the National Endowment for the Humanities so much. And they had worked out this fantastic job sharing arrangement for me. And then the weekend before I was supposed to, you know, leave little Sammy with a nanny and go and do that job, I had this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. Oh my gosh, I'm supposed to stay home and raise this child. So I left my job at the National Endowment for the Humanities and raised my son, and had a second son 2 years later. And through that time of early motherhood, I did a lot of freelance writing for various different organizations. So I kept my toe in the writing world, in the professional world. And again, stumbled into another job. My husband and I were members of a Presbyterian church in Arlington, and it turned out that they needed someone to run the children's ministry program. And my husband said, well, here, now you could do everything you've been doing, except now you could get paid for it.
Wow.
Because I had become a very active volunteer there. So I just started volunteering, I took that job and I started working there and getting more involved in the ministry there. And what happened was I was in that job for 4 years, and it showed me that I really did enjoy children's ministry, but more than that, I enjoyed the life of professional ministry and in being a part of worship. So I dipped my toe in the water. I'm a big fan of dipping your toe in the water and just trying one. Dip my toe in the water, and I tried one seminary class. And that was what hooked me. I decided, I really want to do this, and I want to do more than one class. And in fact, I want to go full throttle and earn the degree. And yeah, so I actually left the job. We still attended that church, but I left the job because I knew that I could not do it all. My boys were still young, and I wanted to be hands-on mother, and I wanted to be there, when they got off and on the school bus. And so I went to seminary. I still went to seminary part-time, but that's where I really felt a calling to do this work, just giving it a little bit of a try, one seminary class.
Well, I would say Manuel is very fortunate that it sounded very opportune, but you were smart enough to recognize that this is something that you enjoyed, and you were willing to put your toe in the water. And we're glad that you're now fully swimming in the pool. We all benefit.
Me too. And I'm so happy to be swimming in the pool at Emmanuel. And just to cap this off, I will add that, that decision I made all those years ago not to major in art or music I think has served me well. It's given, because those are still a vibrant part of my life.
Oh, you're
We're
feeding.
in my
Yeah,
home art
you're
studio
totally
right
feeding.
now, which is
Yeah.
mostly filled with my own work. So it's still a very vibrant part of my life, but I have the freedom to do it the way I want to do it and not to have a paycheck attached to it. So I really appreciate that.
Susan, thank you so much. Susan is a Pathways mentor. You know where to find her. Thanks again.
Thank you.